Paul and Carl, welcome to the Game Informer Show, guys.
Hello.
Hello, thank you very much.
Lovely studio you have there. Little snake pass. What other decorations you got there?
Bit of noodle, bit of doodle.
It's very cute.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Our favorite plushies.
I've been meaning to talk to you guys for a while now because Sumo is one of those names that it starts to bubble up more and more, and it just reaches this point of, I've heard this name so many times in the industry, and I have no sense of what's going on over there, really who these people are. So this is an opportunity to finally meet the mysterious Sumo. So just on behalf of the entire industry, what the hell is going on over there?
Well, we obviously can't possibly talk about it.
Cool. Thank you so much for watching the Game Informer Show. We appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been making games for 15 years, and
we're super busy, super focused on making video games, and it's when you're busy doing that, there's not a lot of time for a lot of other stuff. So we tend to sort of get our heads down and try and make fun games, but it's great to get a chance to talk to you guys about it.
Yeah, for sure. So Paul, you've been with Sumo for how long now?
I co-founded the company 15 years ago.
Jeez.
Nearly 16.
And does it feel like in the last 5 years things have really exploded in a good way, or how would you arc this trajectory here?
Things have just continued from day one, really. We started the company with 8 people, and the next year there were more, the next year there were more. We kept saying we'll never get bigger than a certain number, but we keep growing and we keep doing more things. And it's just, when you look back, it seems like 15 minutes, never mind 15 years.
And now you're at 5 studios?
I have to start counting them. Yeah, 5 studios, yeah.
That's absurd. Okay, so 4 in England, 1 in India, is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, 4 in England. We opened, we kind of opened at 2 last year. We acquired CCP Newcastle. So we've got a studio in Newcastle that used to be CCP Games in Newcastle. They were the guys that did Eve Valkyrie. And what else did we do last year?
The Chinese Room.
Last year we acquired the Chinese Room. So we've now got a studio in Brighton, which is the Chinese Room.
Do you want to talk about that Chinese Room acquisition a little bit? Everybody's gone to the Rapture. Everybody knows them. What was that process like? What were those discussions like to make that happen? I hadn't met Dan before 2017. So I met him at the back end of 2017 when they'd finished Rapture. And he was keen to do something a little bit new and a little bit different, and step a little bit away from running a company and just focus more on creating games and content. And I met him, Carl, our CEO, met him, and we just seemed to really click really well. Conversations just one thing led to another, and 6 months later we did the acquisition. This is what's mind-boggling, is you think of like big indie studios, even like an Insomniac, they have 2 studios, right? Like one in Burbank, one in North Carolina, and even that feels like a stretch. And so to have you guys have so many different studios, how is it possible to have an indie developer spread out so wide here?
For me, it's about having studios that have, key talent and skill sets within their studios. So they're effectively running their own projects. They're running as a studio on their own things. So we're really about enabling groups of people to make great content rather than have the Sumo way of making games where we assimilate people into doing the same thing. That's not what we're about. So it's really about finding good people and building teams around them, like we did with Carl in Nottingham.
Yeah, it's key to making. I think studios have an optimum size if you're going to make really high quality products where you've got teams that function really well. And so, as a company gets bigger, the idea managing to keep it into small chunks that can make its own games and make their own projects and work effectively together and create stuff that's fun without becoming some sort of corporate behemoth. That's a great way to try and grow. Yeah,
and what's game development like in India these days? I'd imagine you guys have to keep your eyes on it a fair amount.
Yeah, it's interesting because we opened the studio in India nearly 12 years ago, actually. So, for the first couple of years, there were quite a lot of challenges. It was an art studio, so a lot of artists in Pune, because there was quite a lot of talent in Pune. And like you say, communication initially was quite challenging, but over time, we've got some more senior staff within that studio that understand a lot more about Western game development. And more recently, we've been able to set up an engineering team there. And now we've got a design team started there. So we've got quite a few level designers there creating content. And that started to work really, really well. So I think we've got 85 people in India now. So it's quite a sizable studio.
Oh, wow. Which project are they working on?
All sorts. All sorts.
All of them, yeah.
They've done quite a bit. They've helped out on
Team Sonic Racing.
They helped out on Hitman 2. So, all sorts of things. Basically, whatever we're working on, sometimes things get done there as well.
Okay, so just trying to wrap my mind around the expansion of Sumo in general. Do you think a part of it is just maybe the British game development scene over the past 5 years, or whatever window you want to frame it? It's been a little bit rocky. There have been some studio closures, a lot of racing teams kind of being dispersed. Is that just part of the story of Sumo? There's so much talent that we have to scoop these people up?
I think there's absolutely a lot of talent in the UK. I mean, we would say that we've worked in the UK for a long time. But there's a lot of game development history in the UK that's, that stayed within the area. But really for us, it's about engaging with publishers and enabling teams to create content and providing a service that publishers want to come back to. So I think that's why Sumo have been successful is we try and work really closely with publishers to provide what they want, how they want it, when they want it, so they'll come back and want more later. So that's kind of the Sumo ethos.
I mean, I think it's a general trend in the games industry, whichever country you're in, that studios build up and sometimes they can come and go, but the talent stays around often, and when you've got that sort of core gravity of people around, you can always form a new studio, and new studios do form, and that's why the games industry is so dynamic and so interesting to work in, because you can do this kind of stuff. And Nottingham, where the Nottingham studio is, it's a classic case example of that, where there have been companies in the past that have risen and fallen, but there's an opportunity there to build a new studio in a new location. But we knew there was talent within a good radius that we could.
We've all been through it, haven't we?
Yeah.
I mean, I was made redundant in 2003 when Infogrames closed Infogrames Sheffield after acquiring Gremlin. So when you've been through that process as a developer of being made redundant, studio closing, our focus was, how do we not go through that process again? How do we create a developer that is not going to be either feeding itself hand to mouth or be dependent upon the success of the next project, rather than being able to just continue to make games.
Yeah, Carl, I mean, you want to talk about that group that you've been working with for a long time? Are you still working with a bunch of old Free Radical friends, a lot of even Rare friends at this point?
Yes, I mean, there's companies around Nottingham like Free Radical, which I was one of the founders of. Yeah, I mean, there are people in Sumo Nottingham who I've worked with for a long time and who were part of that setup. They also came when Crytek came in, and I was there for a while, and we had a group of people there. Some of them have gone off to do their own studios, some of them and some of them have stuck with me over the years. So it's good to have a core group of people who are talented and you trust, and then build up a new group of people around that, and hopefully bring in more senior people. And we've always had a good relationship, because I've been in that area for so long. Got a good relationship with all the local universities and colleges, so we can get fresh blood into the industry as well, because I think that's really important to bring new people in and new blood in. So having those sort of experienced people in place that I know I can trust to nurture a new set of young fresh blood, that's great.
Yeah, well, okay, the fresh blood's great, but I mean, come on, you were at Rare during the golden days, man. That's got to be exciting. Does the fresh blood ask you a lot about, like, oh, tell me about GoldenEye, tell me about Perfect Dark?
The ones who come in these days, you have to tell them what GoldenEye was, and I do all the time.
The interview process, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
How
much did you like GoldenEye? Well, you've got a job. Yeah.
What was your contribution to those games? What was your title back then at Rare for those projects?
I was the environment artist. It was a small team.
Oh, wait a minute. Okay, environment artist. I mean, are you like contributing to designing facility, like to that level?
Yes. Yeah. So I did. I pretty much built an awful lot of.
He's brought his maps with him.
You want to see a map? Look.
Shut up. A facility?
There you are.
Shut the f*** up. Why did you bring that?
That's the silo from GoldenEye.
That's amazing. You just have that sitting on the couch next to you?
Yeah, well, I thought it might be interesting, but yeah, I mean. Hang on.
I gotta dive in just a little bit. Okay, just because I'm a nerd, specifically with Facility and GoldenEye, Felicity and Perfect Dark. Like, did you design those maps in particular?
So a lot of them, yeah. Facility was done. It was based on one of the main single-player levels, which was based on the actual blueprints from the movie, because we went down to Leavesden where they were filming it and took photos and got all the plans and stuff. So I modeled that, and then Duncan Botwood was one of the designers who turned that into a multiplayer level by blocking stuff off. But fundamentally, yeah, it was based on the stuff that I built for the single-player game.
Do you realize how many nerds out there like myself just daydream, but like someday, if I have an infinite amount of money, I'm going to rebuild that building and just play paintball in it. That would be the most fun you could possibly have. Awesome.
Yeah.
And then, so you moved on to Free Radical eventually.
Yes, yeah, that's right. Yeah, myself and a couple of other guys left, and we've set up Free Radical Design in Nottingham. Again, partly because there was good universities there, it's a good city. We knew there was talent there already. There were some other games companies around, so as part of that sort of nurturing the local thing, we set that up, and that ran for 10 years. How
much do you keep your eye on the state of Timesplitters? I feel like, from our point of view, it's always like 6 months a story, like a news story will pop up saying like, hey, some fans are trying to remake Timesplitters, or obviously you included that amazing Timesplitters 2 Easter egg, in the past. Like, how engaged are you in just keeping your eye on that series?
Yeah, I mean, the Nottingham studio has certainly quite a few people who worked on all of the Timesplitters titles. It's close to our hearts in terms of games that we've made that we love and that we love playing and that we love playing. And, and I think a lot of the modern games, first player, Battle Royale games, clearly takes, I'll be, take a bit of credit and say I think some of those games were influenced by Timesplitters because they're very sort of slightly tongue-in-cheek, slightly silly, very frantic games, and that seems to be the trend now. When we made Timesplitters, it was all very serious, dark Space Marine games. So, in that sense, it's great to see the influence that it's had over the years. And yeah, love the franchise. Always have done, always will do.
Yeah. If it ever came back, do you think it should embrace that Battle Royale style? Does it even need a campaign if, in theory, it would ever come back?
Oh, that's a long question, isn't it? I think that the core of Timesplitters was it was fast and furious and it was fun and it didn't take itself seriously, and as long as you get that and, as long as you keep that kind of character, games need a character to define them, because that's that thing. And with Timesplitters, it was very much our art style and that thing, that it was quite different. And, there's no point doing something because other games have done it and it's been successful. Each game's got to make its own little way there and define itself in some way or other. And I think that's the key to making a successful, particularly sequel.
Yeah, of all the studios in the world, to in theory make a new Timesplitters, I mean, you guys have some relationship with THQ Nordic now, and obviously with that history there, would you ever be interested in pitching a new Timesplitters?
We would certainly have plenty of ideas, I'm sure, if that was to be an option, yes.
If that were to ever be an option, could it ever be an option?
Always got ideas for new games like that, yes.
Okay, all right. Paul, all right, so Paul, trying to figure out, you talk about like, making publishers happy. That's the secret to Sumo's success. What is that pitch process like for you? Are you just dialing up every publisher to make sure they have your phone number as just readily on hand as possible to be like, hey, we'll take projects, give it to us, we can tackle anything here?
Well, at the end of the day, either we can take a project or we can't. And often when we say no, we can't take a project, that publisher will come back later because we said no. So at the end of the day, we'll only take things on that that we can take on, and that those relationships they are fairly constant, absolutely. So there's things that we're doing now, there's things that we've done in the past, the things that we look to do in the future, but we're always talking to publishers. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like you guys have had a great relationship with Sega and Microsoft in particular. Are those kind of your big two?
We have relationships with Sega, Microsoft, Sony.
Sony's a great relationship.
We do a lot of work with CCP. Yeah. You mentioned THQ Nordic. So yeah, lots of different publishers.
What do you think they see in you guys when they say, "Hey, you've got the deal"? Do they give a reason why?
Usually, charm and humor.
Absolutely, yeah. Generally,
we love facility. We have to give you this project.
Generally, it's creative alignment and having the technical chops to be able to do what it is they need to do. So,
Yeah. Have you noticed? Have you had to make big shifts in your business in the last 5 years? I don't know why I keep using that metric. In terms of pitching to publishers, what big trends have you seen that you've been trying to stay on top of?
I think we see shifts all the time, and it's always, there's always new ways of playing. There's always new, VR was a big thing over a period of time. We didn't necessarily do a lot of work in that space. But Switch came along, a little while ago. We had Snake Pass on Switch. It was the first, Unreal Engine 4 game released on Switch and other platforms at the same time within a month of the Switch launch. So, we're always on, new technology as and when that's there. So the industry is always changing, which is great.
What's really interesting when you're talking with publishers, particularly when they've got really interesting IPs and they're looking for and that's something new to do with it, is the best relationships that we've had and we continue to have are ones where there's great sort of creative cross exchange of ideas, and they'll come to you with an idea for a game with one of the existing IPs, and there's one of the things that I think Sumo really offers is not only its technical capability, but it's the imagination. It's coming up with new things to do with the franchise and take it in a new direction. And the publishers, particularly recently, are always very open to new ideas from companies like Sumo who say, well, they come to us with an idea and say we'd like a game like this, and we can go back and say that's great. How about we tackle it in this way? And then that's when it works really well. Yeah.
How often are you pitching new IP to them versus them saying like, hey, can you possibly take Little Big Planet 3, for example?
So fairly regularly, and we actually have a small team in Sheffield that are doing kind of pitches and new ideation, coming up with new games, new ideas. A couple of those have been, we're having some good conversations about a couple of those ideas. But that often leads to a new thing. So we can often say, oh, we've got this idea for this, this platformer, and then someone will say, but we've got this IP. So why don't you just do a treatment on that utilizes our IP? And then, of course, we've got, then we get that creative alignment where we've had an idea, but they've got maybe a franchise or a property that fits really well with the gameplay idea that we've got.
Is that Team Sonic Racing, which is coming out soon? I mean, that's a classic example of that, where Sega came to us and wanted to do something new with the Sonic Racing brand, and had this team idea. We refined that. We came back. We worked very closely with Izuka-san in LA about back and forth. So we had the two design teams fundamentally working very closely, and we've come up with a game with a very strong team-based mechanic. But it's because of that interchange between us and Sega that we've got to that point.
Yeah, going back to the origins of the Sonic Racing games is really interesting to me. I feel like I don't think you guys get enough credit for it's just become a default to oh yeah, those Sonic Racing games are really good. And everyone in the industry just says it, but it's that is such an anomaly. Not a tradition to you guys, but just that idea of Sonic in a car and the games are good. Oh yeah, no, of course. And it's just from your guys' hard work. What were those early discussions like, and what was the messaging from Sega about why Sonic had to be in that car?
So, I mean, you've got to go all the way back to the start of the relationship with Sega. And obviously, actually, before then, we did some technical work for Microsoft for a Codemasters game, to make a Codemasters game work on Xbox Live way back in the day. Bit of engineering support. And Microsoft then recommended us to Sega as a developer that, could do good network network technology. So Sega came to talk to us about Outrun, and we pitched for Outrun. We got Outrun and brought Outrun 2 to Xbox and then other platforms. Then, because the PSP came along, Sega wanted Virtua Tennis on PSP, and we pitched for that. We said, we can do a great job with that, and we did Virtua Tennis for launch on PSP, and this is in 2004 or 5, I think. But then we'd got knowledge of Virtua Tennis, and Sega had got this range of IP, and Sega kind of said, have you got any ideas of what you could do with Virtua Tennis to make a game that would appeal to other people? So, well, we'll put loads of different Sega characters in. So we proposed All Stars Tennis, Sega Superstars Tennis to Sega, and they were like, yeah, actually, if you can persuade the IP holders to put their characters within Sega into your game, then we'll do this. So we went to Japan. We met lots of different IP holders, and they said, yeah, okay, you can have my character. And we basically made Sega Superstars Tennis. And because of the success of that, there was well, what do we do next? So it's kind of now, actually, wouldn't it be great to do look at the success of things like Mario Kart? Why don't we do effectively, Sega and Friends does karting? So It was a lot of history, but then, it was our creative team saying, why don't we do this? Why don't we try this? And then kind of persuading the different franchise holders within Sega that it was a good idea.
And now you guys are the last team to work on the Skies of Arcadia IP, which is just a crazy concept because you included that in the racing game. That's such a crazy honor. Was that a tough one to get, to have those discussions for that one in particular?
I don't remember that one. You'd have to ask probably Steve Lycett about that one.
Okay.
He was involved in those discussions, but don't know.
Gotcha. And then things just kind of snowball from there, right? Where it's like, well, you guys are great at racing, so now Disney will reach out to you for Disney Infinity, for the Speedway.
Absolutely, yeah. That was a conversation with Disney and the guys from Avalanche at the time, and yeah, again, it just made perfect sense because they were fans of the game and kind of came and talked to us.
Yeah. So we did the Disney Infinity 3.0 cover story, and on that trip, when we saw Speedway, it's like, this is impressive. I don't know why this isn't sold standalone. Couldn't you guys make so much more money just calling it Disney Racing? Am I nuts?
I don't think you are.
What? and John Vignacchi, God bless his heart over there, was like, yeah, I don't know. It's a debate. We don't really know, but I think we're going to sell it just within Disney Infinity 3.0. In retrospect, what do you think? It's one of
the best kept secrets because, I don't know how many people actually went to the effort of playing that part of the game, but it was great.
Yeah.
Is that what you want from your games, to be best kept secrets, though?
Not really, no. Well, it's a bit like Sumo. We seem to be one of the industry's best kept secrets, but yeah.
That's wild. I mean, yeah, it's best kept secrets, but you're working on so many games at this point. All right, just for a rundown here, Project Nova, still being worked on?
Yep.
Okay, great. Crackdown 3, still being worked on.
Yep.
Dead Island 2, still being worked on.
Yep.
Okay, Hitman 2, kind of sort of still being supported? Basically done?
Bit. Yeah.
Okay, and then Team Sonic Racing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then probably a couple other mystery projects in the midst.
Yeah, a few, yeah.
Okay, with 3, what are we talking here?
Oh, so many.
It's definitely single digits.
Yeah.
Single digits. Okay. All right. The saga of Crackdown 3. Not looking for new details on the features of the game, but what has that journey been like for you guys? This entire run. When did you get brought on board? What were those early discussions?
We've been on it for over 5 years, so yeah, right near the start, I guess.
Has it been a difficult development for you?
It's been an interesting one.
Because it's changed a fair amount. Like there's a lot of people to have discussions with and shifting development priorities, all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just one of those projects it's gone in different directions at different times, I guess. And it's a very ambitious game.
Yeah, I bet. How are you feeling about it at this point? I mean, you're nearing the finish line, right?
Excited to get it in people's hands.
Are you going to hit that finish line?
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome. And real quick,
Absolutely.
On the Dead Island 2 front, I feel like that is one of those sleeper brands in the industry of like, when that game eventually gets out the door, I think people might be shocked of like, oh, it turns out there is a shocking amount of love for Dead Island still out there, even though it has been a surprising amount of time since that first game. But what has that game's development been like for you guys? Because it was transferred from Jaeger over to you guys, is that right?
We started on it probably just over 2 years ago, I think. So, yeah.
Okay, and how are you feeling about it?
Yeah, good. There's a lot of good stuff in there, so yeah, it's exciting.
Okay.
Yeah, I think when THQ Nordic are ready to show more, I think you'll like what you see.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds fair. All right, so Paul, after all your years, just if you have any other advice for people running a studio, I don't know how many people are listening to this podcast. Give us some big do's and don'ts. Big do's and don'ts throughout your history here.
You're making me feel old now. Oh, do's and don'ts.
As an industry veteran,
yeah. Kari, you're welcome to support him too. Tell him what he's doing wrong.
I tell you, the one thing we always ask, the question we always ask ourselves, and I think this works at any level, whether you're junior or management, is why would that be good? That's the question you always with everything. Whether it's a big high level management decision or whether it's a game feature or design. Why would that? Ask yourself that question. Why would that be good?
Good for for who exactly? For the customer or for the publisher or what?
Yeah, for the end goal of the game. Yeah, I mean, games. I think we're so lucky to work in an industry where your end product is entertainment and it's supposed to be fun, and you can get so entrenched, in making stuff in the serious side of business and all that. But actually, at the end of the day, we're making fun for people, and so the absolute question, the bottom line question always is, why would that be good?
Why would that be good? That's good. I'm sure your teams are sick of hearing you say that over and over again.
It's a
Paul,
good point, though.
give us
we
some
do
wisdom.
make games for a living, which is amazing. But we still get to go to work every day and work in a creative environment where we get to have fun while trying to make some pretty ambitious content.
Do you have to remind yourself of that? I imagine you get up some call with some publisher again, just beat your head against the desk and just goes, okay, it's just games. It's just games, everybody.
You always go through those periods where making games is hard. It's simple, but it's hard because it's a creative process mixed a technical process where you've got a lot of things pulling in a lot of different directions. So it's something that is fairly straightforward, but emotionally quite hard. So you'll always have the times when you have to make difficult decisions. But just for me, you just treat people how you want to be treated, and and be honest with yourselves, because that would be my advice.
Yeah. I think you see that with all the creative things. You see it in film and TV as well. The very best outcomes usually come with a bit of pain along the way, because you have those challenge between the creative side and the technical side, and so you look at films like Apocalypse Now. They're horrendous things to make, but the end is a work of art, and you don't ever want to work on a project like that. But it's part of the fun, is the challenge of making stuff good, because we can all create a game, a checkerboard game, and we know how to make the basics, but to take it to that level where it's really fun, that can often be the painful bit, but the fun bit too.
Yeah. What has been the most fun bit when you think back on both your histories? Like, what's your favorite day in the game industry, or most exciting, most satisfying?
Favorite day in the game industry?
Sorry, it's a big ass.
Yeah. Oh. Wow.
Well, I remember the first day we got split screen multiplayer running on GoldenEye, because we didn't think that was going to work, and we spent an evening playing that, and it worked, and we were pretty delighted with that. That was fun.
And that was
every
super.
Time you get a game come out and you see it on the shelf, or it's available for download, that's always you get a buzz from that, because it represents so much work from such a big group of people. So just to see it out there and people buying it, and spending their money to buy something that you've made, it's just a buzz.
Yeah, because the split screen multiplayer came in super late, right? Yeah,
it was a bit of a last minute. We didn't really tell anyone we were working on it, kind of thing.
And then Nintendo was like, "Yeah, sure, I guess."
Yeah, they were delighted.
Do you miss kind of the looseness of those days?
The what? Sorry?
Just how loose it was back then, where you could just squeeze that in last second, no big deal.
Yeah, I mean, it's games industry's changed a lot. Small teams, lower budgets, you could be take a lot more risks with less financial upside and downside. So that when it was the Wild West, I suppose you would call it, back in the early days. That was great fun, but also the technology was simpler then. It was an easier thing to try. But yeah.
Did you ever get like a "Hey, good job" from Miyamoto? Any sort of thumbs up across the seas?
Yeah, I remember the E3 show when we were showing it, and it won the AIS award the first year they ran those awards. And we got bussed to the awards in big buses and with Nintendo Japan. And on the way back, I was sitting with a couple of the other guys, and we had the awards on our laps. And Miyamoto was sitting in front of us, and he turned around and said, "Congratulations." He came over to Rare quite often anyway, so we knew him a little bit. I mean, it's a great thing to chat to him. He'd seen it and talk to us about it. So he turned around and said, "Well done."
What do you remember about his visits to Rare? What was he particularly interested in?
He came as part. In those days, obviously, Rare were partly owned by Nintendo and were just pure Nintendo produced. And so, he used to come around and see all the projects and see what we were working on and pass comments and stuff like that. It was always good to get his input on stuff.
Was it intimidating to have him critique animation and Banjo-Kazooie and stuff like that?
Intimidating, just great, because everyone has so much respect for him, and even then he'd been in the industry a long time and done some great stuff. So you always want to meet people who you admire and whose games you've played in the past, and it's a great opportunity. I mean, starting out in the industry, there's a bit of starting at a company like Rare that had that relationship with Nintendo. It gave you a great opportunity to learn from a real group of professionals how to make video games.
Yeah. All right, Paul, we've given you time to think. All right, number one day in the industry. Here you go.
It could well be, the opening day at Sumo, when I'd built the 8 PCs that the 8 people were going to work on. I'd put the servers together, and basically everyone came in and worked that day. We had no contracts, no projects, but we basically had a ball trying to come up with some new ideas that we could pitch to some people.
Oh, it's just a game jam?
No, that was the first day of Sumo.
Professional game jam. Do you remember
coming to work? We don't know what we're doing. We'll try and come up with some ideas. We'll try and pitch some things, but basically we've got the PCs on the desk. We've got the desks in. Dan had laid the floor, so we'd got an office, and it was like grown up. It was our own company, and it's like, what do we do now?
First day at Free Radicals, putting together furniture from flat packs. It's like,
Don't worry about the design later.
yeah.
What do you remember anything from those early pitches? From those early ideas?
Oh yes, I do, absolutely. Yeah, there was an open world city game where you played as a policeman, but
Sounds ambitious.
But yeah, it was ambitious. And yeah, we were looking at doing something. We loved Hogs of War. We tried to do something with Hogs of War, to take that on and do another Hogs of War, but it never quite got there.
Oh God, who owns Hogs of War at this point?
Now, Atari, someone in Atari, maybe, if there is still an Atari somewhere.
God, of all people, you should know if there's an Atari, right? You guys are connected to everybody, for Christ's sake.
I kind of lost track.
It still exists in some form somewhere. I don't know exactly how.
Yeah. So what does the future look like for Sumo?
We're busy.
Yeah, absolutely. Just more games, a bit more growth. Maybe some. We'll just continue to grow. We'll grow in the UK. We'll grow wherever. Just keep working on creative stuff. More IPs for more people.
Yeah.
Another 5 years of Dead Island 2 development. Okay, we'll see. Are you hell bent on staying indie?
Well, we're a public company now, so we're kind of we're on market in the UK, on AIM listed. So yeah, we're kind of in our what we think is our kind of final resting place as a company. So we're no longer going through any kind of management buyouts or private equity funding or anything like that. We're now on market, so that gives us the stability to continue to do more things like Snake Pass, where we come up with our own ideas, more game jams. And more growth.
Yeah, and Microsoft won't come knocking to try and purchase you guys anytime soon.
Well, I don't think so.
So, like with I think we flirted with it a little bit, but like with the Chinese room in particular, like, do you want those guys and gals to keep working on what they're good at? Is that the idea? Absolutely. Is keep that team somewhat separate within Sumo, just to stay on that track? Absolutely, yeah. Let Dan and his team do what they do best. Which is games that they're known for, but also expanding their the walking simulator genre that they kind of invented and doing a bit more than that, but being really creative, telling some great stories. It's what they do.
Paul said it earlier on in this conversation. Every studio needs to have its being. It's pretty independent and has its own culture and its own character and works on its own projects. And it's important that the studios work to their own strengths. And some studios will have different expertise in different areas. So it's about those studios. Depending on which studio you go to within the Sumo group, it's not an identikit company. It's a company that obviously shares a family of skills and knowledge base, but actually very much has its own skill sets depending on which studio you're in. So Chinese room should definitely be doing the things that they're strong at, and our Newcastle studio will be doing stuff that they're strong at, and certainly my studio in Nottingham, we try and focus on the things that we have a core skill set in, and Sheffield does the same. So,
Yeah, awesome. Anything else you guys want to say? Get off your chest after all these years?
No, I don't think so. No,
it's just trade again, how much fun it is to work in the games industry. I think we should encourage more people to get into the games industry, and we need to keep making positive noises about the games industry and make sure it gets the recognition it deserves.
Yeah, there we go. Beautiful. Hey, Paul and Carl, thank you so much for your time, guys. Really appreciate it.
Really nice to talk to you.
That was just a clip from a larger show called The Game Informer Show. You can find it on iTunes, Google Play, or GameInformer.com. We take the fun opportunities and exclusive information from Game Informer magazine and boil it into a show that airs every Thursday with exclusive cover story information, developer interviews, a lot of fun stuff. So come love games with us.